My name is Trevor Lecca, and today's webinar topic is all about leading your tech and your team for the long haul. So I think there's that moment for most small business owners, kind of at the beginning of just when you're starting your business out, that kind of aha moments when you have some systems that you put in place and you figure out, hey, this is going to work for my business, and it's very exciting, and it should be exciting, obviously, right? Getting some things to work out and knowing that your business is going to become successful because of it is a very exciting moment. But as time progresses, as life moves on, it's important to keep in mind that things are going to have to change. And as we all know, change can be very difficult. Our guest today, Jade Smith, is going to come on and talk to us about some of that process, about updating things as we move through life, as our business grows, as maybe as your team grows as well, and giving us some really proactive pointers to think about how to make sure we're updating everything as we move through our life and our business so that we can continue growing in a healthy manner. So like I said, our guest today is Jade Smith. She's a Dubsado Certified Specialist, and she's the founder of Mrs. Smith Assist, which is a boutique virtual assistant admin team. And her team supports business owners who go through admin, marketing, and tech work. Jade is known for her ability to transform chaos into order with an easygoing yet strategic approach to business and creative collaborations. And I'm really excited to hear all of her tips and tricks for today's conversation. So let's go ahead and bring on Jade. Here she comes. There we go. Hey, Jade, how's it going?
Hi, I'm doing so good. How are you?
I'm fantastic. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I am so
Yeah, I'm
excited.
so glad to hear you're excited. I'm really excited too. All right, let you get going here in just a second. But for folks here in the chat, while Jade is speaking, I'll be hanging out in the chat. If you have any questions, please feel free to throw those right there in the webinar chat or the Q&A. Totally fine. If there's a good question for us to discuss together at the end, we'll hang on to it at the end. Otherwise, I'll attend to it quickly there in the chat. All right, Jade, take it away.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys for joining. I am so excited to be talking about leading your tech and your team for the long haul. I feel like even as Trevor was talking about like the synopsis of what today is all about, I was sitting there thinking, I'm going to fall in love with this topic the more that I talk about it today. So yeah, thank you for being here. My name is Jade. Mrs. Smith Assist is the business since 2019. I started a little bit as a project manager, like in the film production space. So I come from working with creatives. I'm a musician as well. That's how my husband and I met. So I love creatives. I love bringing order to what creatives do. I love capturing order with all that creativity is just so much fun for me. And I really love bringing other people in to support me too, now that I'm going through this journey myself as transitioning from like this, executive admin, project management kind of way of thinking into CEO, be the visionary. It's so like invaluable to have people around you that can bring that order and bring that structure in to support you as well. We homeschool, we're a homeschool family as well. So everybody always says when I tell them everything we do, they're like, how do you do it all? I don't know. We make it work. That's the life that we want. And I think a lot of business owners say that too, just about being a business owner. If you have worked in corporate or you worked in all these kinds of scenarios, you just don't always understand what it's like to have that taste of the freedom and the flexibility. All the potential that comes with being a business owner is so valuable, and it really is a lifestyle. And we believe that that just spills over into the way we live with our kids and our family and our homeschooling. So I am a certified Dubsado specialist. I always like to say I became one of the first Dubsado specialists in 2021. It was a really cool journey for me because I started as a solo VA. And about the first year and a half of my business in the online space, Dubsado was actually one of the very first tools, one of the very first systems in the digital space, if you will, that I was exposed to. And it made so much sense to my brain. And I started just setting it up for other business owners. And it wasn't until about a year and a half later, I put it in place for my business and they rolled out the certification program. And I was like, I think I should do this just to prove that I know what I'm doing. And so that really like was the kind of the beginning of the part of my business that really set me apart as a systems person. And I really felt that really like gave me the confidence to step out and say, no, I am a systems person. I am a strategist when it comes to tools and like putting things in order. And so that's really where a lot of it started for me. And now getting to help other business owners scale with their team or their systems is just so much fun for me. So let's dive right in. How did your tech begin in your business? And this question is going to vary so much. So I want you to drop in the chat what Like just take a second, think back, like what was the beginning of your business? And for so many people and for everybody here today, we're all going to have a different story. If you are in the very beginning phases of your business, if you've been in business for 10 years, whatever that looks like, whether you're solo or you have a team, everybody has a story around their tech, their systems, their processes. And a lot of times what we see happen is you lay kind of the essentials, if you will. You lay like that basic foundation at the beginning. You're like, okay, what do I need to get things up and running? What do I need to start making money? What do I need for my business to be official, for this to be legit? And for some, there is this component that feels like, no, I need to really know what I'm doing. I need to really have things in order. Especially if you come from like a systems perspective, or if you're in an industry where you just cannot get by without like putting some basic things in place. So what was that like for you? Did you feel like you did all of the investment on the front end and you like got some really solid things established? I know for me, like I mentioned, I didn't have Dipsauto in the very beginning. It was like I had a contract from like a Word doc, when I would email out, I got these conversations via email about like how to get going. And there was no onboarding process. There was no onboarding process. So it has evolved quite a bit. So once you think about like where you were in the very beginning stages, then what? You lay that foundation, no matter how big, no matter how small, you invest in that time, but then what happens when that project is done? What happens a few months later? What happens 6 months later? How long does it take for you to realize that something is going to change? And that change is coming. One of the reasons we know change is coming, hopefully, like inevitably, is that your business is going to succeed. I love having this mindset. I love having this like way of being that everything's going to be successful. It's just going to take off. And so I think for me, I have a tendency to, from the very beginning, like lay out everything. When I started my business, I maybe didn't have all my backend systems set up, but I built the website like straight from the start, from the ground up, because I had a vision for it. And the inspiration just grabbed a hold of me. And I was like, let's make this happen. But change has to come. No matter how strategic, intentional, or perfect your investment is in the front end, whether it's systems, whether it's a website, whatever part of your tech it may be, whatever part of your business it may be, it is going to require change at some point down the road. Think about your car. It's a very practical, very in your face, obvious example of how you have to maintain a car, how you have to take care of a car. 8 years ago, you're like, okay, I got a new car. Yay, it's brand new. Nothing's ever going to go wrong. Oh, well, we've got to change the oil regularly, along with other things that you have to do. And then you have to get new tires, and that's like a little pricey. It's more than an oil change. And then you have to replace the battery. And sometimes these different repairs, depending on how expensive or how like vital they are to, the operation of the car, they can be really stressful. And then you find yourself 8 years after getting a car, or 10 years after getting a car, depending on, how good the car was, how valuable it was, how well maintained it was, you are now considering a new car. So your investment is having to be reinvested in, it has to be reevaluated. But despite all that, because that can feel a little defeating to think, I've been reinvesting, I've been continuing to put all this work into this car, and now here I am, and I'm still thinking about getting a new car. As long as it was a good car, most cars, if you get a new car, I would like to think most cars are good cars. They're going to do their job for you. And that's the question. When you're thinking about all your business systems, everything that you lay in place in your business, what has it done for you in the time that you've had it? I meet with a lot of business owners who will talk about their systems and like laying these foundations. And I always encourage them, listen, it's going to evolve and it should evolve. Your business is going to change, your systems are going to change, and that's good. But think about what your systems are gaining you. What value is it offering you and your customers or in your team in this time? Like this entire 8 years, you think about that you had a car, where did you go? What did you do? Did you go on road trips with your family? Did you get to and from work? There's so many things that come with the season of time that you have this car. And it's the same with your business. If you start with like an, intro, what you would consider like an intro CRM, and then 5 years down the road, you're like, I can't believe I ever used that CRM. That was like, it was never had enough like value. It was, it was never robust enough. Hey, don't discredit your small beginnings, right? Don't discredit the value of what that stepping stone was for you in your tech. So drop in the comments. What is your system? What is your tool providing you right now? What have your tools provided you up to this point? I think that this reflection is so valuable because it shows you that the investment, your money investment, your energy investment, all of the research, the collaboration that goes into establishing tools is so worthwhile, and that's given you something. I think that we miss this a lot when we look at KPIs and like, how are things performing? Like, what value did this give you in your day-to-day life? How did it get your business from point A to point B and where you're at right now? What would be possible or not be possible if you didn't have these tools in place? I cannot even imagine some of the way that my business is operating now just because of some of the tools that we've put in place and the systems that are supporting them. And some of those tools are the tools that I've had and used from the very beginning. They've just different pieces of them have evolved and taken on a new form. I'm so interested to like look at all of y'all's comments in the chat and see what you think. But gratitude grounds you. And what's really helpful when you're going through this reflection process is to think about, okay, what has worked well? What has this given me? What has this given my team? I will tell you, and maybe, there's a place for me to like explore new tools and new processes, but one of our most fundamental communication tools is like probably the most expensive investment that I make in my business. But I am so passionate about communication and team culture for our team and everybody having that access point. And so that is so valuable to me. I'm so grateful that all of the team has that access to each other, to clients. Like there's just nothing that's worth more than that to me in my mind. And so that gratitude really grounds me and it gives me clarity, those values that you have, those things that you establish for not just your business, like values, core values as a business and how you want to be seen or represented, but those values that you have as a person. It's really important for all of those things to be honored in your business so that it's the fullness of what you want it to be. And I think really often we get frustrated by where we are, what we don't have, what we are impatiently hoping is going to happen next. And gratitude chills you out. It puts everything into perspective and reminds you that I'm here in the place and time I need to be. Things that are going to grow take time. You put a seed in the ground and it needs water and it needs sun and it's not going to shoot up overnight. And that gratitude is such a game changer for you and the growth of your business. And that lens applies to tech, even if it seems like it may be a little obscure or silly. All these different facets of your business, they impact you. And so keeping that perspective of gratitude across the board is huge. So let's talk about embracing growth in reality. It's just like I was saying, things don't happen overnight, and sometimes things don't happen the way that we expect them to. So let's look at, I was curious, and I don't remember how I started this little rabbit hole, but when I was getting ready, I started thinking about a business that like everyone would know. How did it start? What was its journey? Amazon, I did not know they had a different name, launched as an online bookstore in 1994. And I was like, oh yeah, this used to be a bookstore. It's been so like, I don't know them that way anymore. I know them as what they are now. I don't know them as a bookstore. In all 50 states, they sold books just months later. So months after opening. I'm sorry, I'm skipping a key detail here. In this quote, in the early days of Amazon, a bell would ring in the office every time someone made a purchase. This is like the very beginning. Like they open the business and they're like, let's ring a bell every time, a customer makes a purchase. I love this. I love this. Everyone is connected. They're celebrating. It's so cool. It's really, really neat. And a few months later, they're selling books across all 50 states and they're like, we're not doing this anymore. And every one of us that uses our systems and our automations today are like, of course, like there's no way that you can sustain that. And I thought about like the little notifications with the confetti and stuff that we see now. And when you clear your notifications in a certain app, or when you like, Dubsado will do it when you get a payment, it like pings you and you're like, yay, everybody celebrates. And you have, so there's ways that we can implement these kinds of ideas, but what does it look like in reality? Okay, 2000, 6 years later from the time that they have just started rising in success, they almost go bankrupt. And now, at the height of success, and what many people would think is the height of success, the owner, the CEO says, I predict one day Amazon will fail. He is expecting the business to fail. And he now dumps large investments from the business into a different stock. Remember that you define success. Success is not linear. So there's a lot of things that I loved about this, like so many takeaways in this for me. But one of the takeaways I thought about is how cool is it that for him as a business owner, he has reached a place in that CEO journey in his process as a person that he is not so attached to his business and the idea of what success looks like, or his perception of what success looks like in his business, that failure in that just plain term does not intimidate him. It does not limit him. And he's thinking, how can I still use this as a vehicle to reinvest and continue success? How can I make this absolute failure a success for me? How can I leverage my failure as much as possible? And so I love that even this like incredibly successful business, he's viewing it as a stepping stone and just one part of his journey. And I think for many of us solopreneurs, small business owners, we could not even imagine what that could look like. But you have to remember that it's a stepping stone, it's a part of the process. So keeping an open mind will help you when you're navigating that journey as you're getting from point A to point B. So let's bring this back to tech now. Why a proactive approach to your tech is key and how to enjoy it. The first thing that you need to know is that being reactive is going to put you behind. This is very simple. It's a very simple concept, but it can be hard to stay in a proactive position, especially with something like your tech, except for maybe certain industries, right? So let's say for a wedding planner, wedding designer, there's like this one thing that she's never looking at or thinking about. It's probably not venues, right? She's probably very well aware and staying informed of venues. She's staying connected to people with venues. And so it is specific to industry. If you are in a tech space, you are likely, way, way more likely to be paying attention to the tech, just like Dubsado is constantly rolling out their new features and staying on top of how Dubsado can integrate with other tools. How can we improve the integrations with other tools? What are our customers looking for? They're really staying on top of their game because they're in this space. And so it is hard sometimes when you feel like you're not a tech business or you're not in that space to keep that top of mind. It might not feel like it's as important to you. But let me just remind you that being proactive is going to help you stay on top of things without the burden of having to make it such a big project. And ultimately, you're responsible for everything in your business. Even if you have a team, which we're going to talk about, even if you have a team that is supporting you and that takes so much of the load off, you are the CEO, you are the visionary. And at the end of the day, if you decide to switch CRMs, you're the one that's calling that shot. You might have other people informing you, giving you research and helping you make, a really good decision. You might hand off a lot of that, but at the end of the day, they're putting the paper on your desk and you're the one to sign it. And it's important to keep a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset. Again, all those business owners that I meet with in those one-to-one, they want to set up their systems and they want it to be done. They don't ever want to have to come back to it. And that's just like setting up a website, setting up a website and not coming back to it for 10 years. Do you think it's gonna like reflect your brand and the copy's gonna be the same, or even the branding photos of you are gonna be the same? You might look different. Maybe you lost, 100 pounds. I don't know. You want the best version, the best representation of your business to be out there. And that with that requires updates and maintaining and being aware. So let's talk more about this proactive approach. If we know that the systems are going to change, we're not going to be surprised when this happens. So ask yourself, how can I leverage this to the highest potential, even in failure? I'm sitting here thinking, oh my gosh, I need to come back to this question for for myself later. I love this takeaway again from Amazon. How can I leverage this to the highest potential, even in failure? That's such a good perspective shift for me. And yeah. We'll be ahead of the game if we plan for these adaptations over time, and we're going to benefit from that proactivity rather than the reactivity. You can't plan for everything. So that's not what I'm saying either, because there's no way you're going to know how things pan out or what tools are going to come available, or if you would even need that tool if your business changes or shifts in a certain way. So, how do we plan for change? If we can't control everything, if we don't know what's going to happen, we just know change is coming. How do we plan for it? Number one, create a process. So many people deal, like I mentioned, they deal with everything in this overwhelm of like, I have to do this big systems overhaul. I have to like set up everything, and I have to. A lot of times they'll be like, I need to revamp my entire process. I'm like, do you? Do you? We might think we do, but do you really? If you sit down, if you have other people look at it with you, not with as critical of an eye, maybe you are. Do you really have to redo the whole thing? Does it all have to happen next quarter? So I think it's important to have a process so that you're not getting overwhelmed by this like barrage of things you feel like you have to do in your business. It's like the laundry a day keeps the piles away and the dishes. I have learned for me and where my family's at, it takes loads of dishes a day. And pretty much that's where we are. If I don't do two a day, it just gets out of control. Okay, so here's examples of things that we do at MSA, at Mrs. Smith Assist. Our team is outlining SOPs as soon as a new process is developed. And this has started becoming second nature for me, which is really exciting. As soon as I think of something or I think of a way we're changing a process, I'm like, oh, go check the SOP, go check the SOP. Because I've just gotten into the habit of knowing that this is home base. This is home base for us. Store those SOPs in an SOP library with date reminders. You could potentially automate this, have notifications popping up when you need to review different specific things. If you are a solopreneur and you're sitting here thinking there's no way I need an SOP library, I don't agree with you. I respectfully disagree. What I will say is it does not have to be complex. It does not have to be something super um, over the top or complicated. Just start small. Just start with Word documents, maybe for like Word document. Did I just say Word document? That is aging me. That's bad. But start with your talks, or just start with like a written outline of some of your biggest key processes, and then maybe make a spreadsheet and store things in a spreadsheet and just like start there. Start small. Make sure you have something when it is time to delegate. You will be so glad that you had them. Also, as you maintain and as you make changes to these SOPs, it's a lot easier to document and to update these changes along the way than it is. I might be getting ahead of myself on some of these tips for you, but it's a lot easier to maintain rather than to go and create from scratch when your brain has not been in that process. Create it as you go. And then create recurring tasks. If you are using like a project management tool, task manager, create recurring tasks and have the task link to SOPs. It has been so helpful for me when in my business or for my team, when a task pops up, the SOP is literally there. Some of our SOPs, we have like templated language or links or different things that are pasted in, and I can just copy them and use them when I'm completing the task. It makes it so much faster and so much more efficient. And then generate tasks organically as well through your meetings. And this is why I love collaboration. I'm trying to be a little more intentional about what collaboration looks like for me because I tend to be overboard on the collaboration scale. But I think that so much of our creativity and so many ideas and like solutions come up through conversation. I feel like that's so important. So sometimes these tasks don't necessarily have to be a part of your proactive strategic plan to stay on top of systems, but it will happen through conversation. What pain points are happening? What do you not like about this? What's working well? And then you continue to grow with all of those things in mind. And then regular workflows for feedback with your team, with your customers, client feedback, all of this stuff is going to trickle down. And when you have these regular check-ins for this routine feedback, it really makes a difference. And I have noticed this for my team specifically. And then also be realistic about what's possible throughout the month and quarter in the year. So this is something that is good to do at a year's glance, at a quarterly glance, and then maybe like at a monthly glance, but really paying attention to energy levels, capacity, all those kinds of things to make sure that if you do have intensive systems projects or process revamps and things like that, that you are pacing them over the course of the year to really set yourself up for success. It's especially important that those things aren't overloading really heavily, and that your team has the energy to do one project really successfully, have the green light stamp that it was done well, and that builds confidence, and then we can move forward onto the next thing. We don't have to linger there for too long. Okay, number two, how do you plan for change? Build margin and source influencing experts. If you are building margin, especially as the CEO, remember, because everything ultimately comes from top down, everything ultimately is going to come from you. So as the CEO, you have to build margin for really a lot of things. Let's be real. You have to build margin for a lot of things, but building margin for this market research to stay on top of what's happening, what's out there in my industry, but also in the tech space and how that applies to me, whether that's the email marketing, the CRMs, like the pieces that are relevant to your business specifically, build margin for staying on top of those. And this could be something that you incorporate into your CEO day. If you have a CEO day once a week, or even once a month, if you just put it on your calendar to once a month be spending some time to think about this. Many people that are more like of a learning style and like that's their strength, they just love learning, they love education, they are always on this bandwagon. They're always trickling in information from YouTube and podcasts. And so they almost have to put a limitation. If that's you, we are all jealous of you. They almost have to put a limitation on their learning sometimes because it just gets them always in learning mode, which is amazing and phenomenal. If you are not one of those people, find one of those people that can help you figure out what systems are, what's happening with systems, how is tech evolving. And influencing experts would definitely be not just team members that you've placed in key roles, but also influencing experts in industry. So Dubsado as a great example, they know what's happening. They're sending out information. I think there was one time I got some kind of newsletter from Dubsado and they were giving me a heads up about something that was going on in Google that I never would have had any clue about. And the only reason I knew it was going on, and then I had to deal with the problem later because I didn't deal with it. I didn't like put it on my calendar like I'm telling you to do. But the only reason I had any context for what was happening, and it might have actually been a client that was having the issue. I don't remember, but the only reason I had any context for what was happening was because Dubsado was nice enough to say, hey, Google's doing this thing. We just thought you should know. Thank you, Dubsado. Enjoying the process can feel impossible, especially if this is not your bent. But what do you think it would look like to enjoy this? So I'm curious if any of you have picked up on this for yourself. Have there been times when you have enjoyed this, and what did you notice made the difference? Help us all out and drop it in the chat. Let's learn from each other. There's a reason that we want to enjoy the process. Now, not everything is, I don't know what the saying is. Not everything is easy, right? Not everything is like sometimes my kids are don't want to do chores. And my husband's like, you just have to do things you don't want to do sometimes. That's like the standard dad response. But there's a reason that we want to enjoy the process. It is scientifically proven that we will stay engaged and will produce better results. We feel better about the process. We feel better about ourselves. We feel better about those relationships. And while some might naturally learn it, for others it can feel very boring and monotonous and, just unnecessary, to be honest. And sometimes we have that feeling a little bit like it's unnecessary until it's hitting us in the face, and then we realize how important it is and why it was important, like changing the oil on your car. I am one of those people. I'm not paying attention to changing the oil in my car. Okay, recognize the why. Why am I doing this? What value does this give me? What's the value motivating me to continue doing this, to continue making this investment? And then pair it with pleasure. This recipe is going to do so, so, so much for you. Identify the influencing experts and industry specific educators that you resonate and align with. This is really important too, because you can find somebody that's an industry expert that is just like womp, 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 womp. You don't like their style. You don't like how they do anything. And you're like, well, how can I possibly stay engaged and want to be a part of what this person is doing when I don't want to hear anything that they have to say? That is one thing. I know I keep like going on about Dubsado, but they are my people. The way that they communicate, they have so much integrity. They honor people, and that is so, so, so much more valuable than really knowing like all the tech things, right? At the end of the day, when it really comes down to it, you want people that are going to love you and honor you and take care of you. And I'm like, Dubsado does that. And so finding people in your tech community, in your influencing industry community that you resonate with and you align with, because when things start to shift, when things start to change with your tech, you don't want to just go with the big tech company that knows what they're doing. You want to go with a company that you align with, like you really resonate with who they are, how they run their business, what's important to them. Their values are like your values, and you mirror that, because that is what gets you ultimately where you want to be. Give yourself permission to absorb that information in bite-sized pieces. So when they're like putting out their newsletters with just little tidbits for you, they're doing that on purpose. They're trying to make it digestible, because they know, we know, as we're educating our clients, we know that they cannot take it all in at one moment. People have a million things coming at them all the time. We need bite-sized. That's why there's like this shift away from long form content. People are navigating towards the short form and the video content, because we've got to have it in a way that we can digest it. We cannot have it all coming at once. And so time blocking for this can also help as well. Even if you get into a process, we've had clients in the past where they'll file like newsletters into a certain folder, because there's this a little bit of like overstimulation thing that can happen, if you're not a learner and you're just trying to take it all in at the same time. By the end of the day, you're like, I learned 2,000 things today because I was going in a million different directions and it was way too much for my brain and my heart and my energy. So if you need to, have a system, have a process where you put them into a folder or you forward it to a task, and then you come back to it when you want to, when you have decided that you're going to come back to it. Also, make it fun. Why not create incentives around showing up to a webinar like this, to something that's going to help you grow in your tech, to something that's like community building, that's really putting you in a position with other industry experts. It's why networking, in-person networking, is so important and should not die. Hopefully everybody knows that, should not die. But if you are doing this routinely, it's going to help you enjoy the process, because now you are mixing the pleasure with the value, with the why. And so whether you're showing up and you know that you'll show up really well and enjoy the process just because you have a cup of coffee, or just because you get out of the house and go to a coffee shop. Sometimes if you're a work from home mom, that's all you really need, is to get a change of scenery. Get the change of scenery. That does so much for your brain and for your perspective. When you have a team, remember that by placing ideal players in the task is also going to ensure a creative and positive energy that's forward thinking. So remember that if this is not your strength and it's already difficult for you to enjoy the process, you're sitting here thinking the cup of coffee is not going to do it, Jade. Like it's not going to get me there. That could be a really good indicator to you that you need to position someone that likes this. They think this way. They geek out over talking about the Facebook algorithms or whatever it is that they're trying to pay attention to and improve processes for, improve tech for. How is the email marketing component integrating with the CRM? Like they enjoy this. There's parts of the tech stuff that I enjoy, and there's other parts I'm like, I don't care. I don't care. So if that's you as a CEO, recognize what you need in order to have that need met. That creative and positive energy is going to do so much for your business. It's going to do a lot for you as a business owner, and it's going to do a lot for your team. And if you're not operating right now in that creative and positive energy, it's probably draining you. So if you have things that are draining you and draining your energy, it is putting a whole like dampener, whole level and series of limitations on the business and on the growth, because again, it's all trickle down. It's ultimately going to grow to the capacity to which you're able to grow. And this is why you'll hear coaches a lot of the time talk about how important it is to invest in some kind of coaching or mastermind or, self growth, personal growth, leadership development for you as a CEO, because you want your business to grow with you. It will never grow without you. It's always going to need you growing in order for it to grow as well. Consistent progress will be steady and reliable proof that your business is functioning. This is like that gold star. Like at the end of the day, you're like, yes, we're doing it. When you're growing and your team is growing with you, you feel encouraged. You're like, okay, these small steps are working. Even though for me, sometimes I have a very limited hours availability in a certain week to work because of our homeschool life, and my husband's schedule has been for the last few years like in freelance mode. And so we don't have like a real like schedule of any kind, but these daily ways that I show up, like for example, today, all I might do today in my business is show up for this hour with you. But how much value is that for me? Like what is that giving me as a business owner? What is that giving you as a business owner that I chose to show up? So those daily disciplines is more enduring, is more sustainable, more scalable than the exciting things like the new tech or the new, email marketing thing, and the burden that comes with having to keep up with the Joneses, for lack of a better way to say it. Okay, how do you enjoy the process? Drop in some ideas. What have you seen work for you? And you might have already done this, but what have you seen work for you? Now that we've talked about it a little bit, what has worked for other business owners, for your team? Definitely one thing that I see work for us is just the like chit chat interaction in the day to day and making jokes about things that we notice, like even putting a spin on, okay, this algorithm changed again, and here's a fun meme to, get the point home. Being able to have like lighthearted conversations is something that makes the process enjoyable, and it helps us to connect with each other. What is something that you would like to try implementing? Did you have any like light bulb moments as we're talking through this and you're like, okay, that's maybe something I could try? Maybe getting out of the house, going to a coffee shop, when I have to have a tech date or a systems date, and like think about the systems in my business and think about the tech in my business, would it help me to go have like a co-working day? And those kinds of times and spaces can provide so much, again, with the collaboration component, really getting other people's perspectives. And they might know things that you don't even expect them to know that could help change the trajectory of what you're planning and what you're thinking about. When have you personally felt creative and collaborative regarding your systems of tech? This is one of those things, like, let's kind of rinse and repeat where we can. What did you notice works so that we can do it again? And what sparked these ideas or this inspiration to get the work done? I can be very inspiration driven. Like when I personally decide I want to do something, I want to do it like right in that moment. And I will say that it's been a good test for me sometimes to either follow through with that when I know it's the right thing, or to put it on the back burner for a second and go, okay, if this is really good, if this is really what I need to spend time on, then a week from now, it'll be just as exciting. And so there's like a little bit of this, nuance to navigating that for yourself. But it is really, really helpful when you know what works for you personally, because then you can position yourself as a CEO to grow really well in it and bring those support people in that are going to help you get where you want to be. Okay. How to guide and empower the evolution of your tech and your team. Strong foundations. And this comes back to some things I already suggested with SOPs. As you're building strong foundations, your team is going to have a structure to thrive in. I talked about this a little bit. When you make your SOP from the very beginning, it will make it a lot easier when it's time to begin delegating to bring people in. Your process is outlined. If it's not, these new team members are coming in and they're like, I'm here to work in your business. And you're like, okay. And then there's nothing. There's like no track for them to run on. There's nothing for them to get acclimated with, and there's nothing for them to evolve. And often there is not a culture in that kind of space. There's not a culture inviting them in to say, actually, I want you to evolve this process. Actually, I want you to make this better than it is. But if you have SOPs, if you have space for communications and collaboration and conversation and to revisit systems and ask their feedback, all of these things are going to provide the structure in which your team knows where they can color in the lines and where they can color outside of the lines. What does this look like as things are evolving? That first crucial step is to have a solid foundation. And a lot of times people will say, okay, do I need to wait to hire somebody? Like if I'm thinking about, hiring a VA or hiring somebody to support me and do some outsourcing, not necessarily. I think sometimes these individuals can help you with that process. They can help you kind of bridge that gap and cross that bridge when it's time. Do not delay something you feel like needs to happen just because you're procrastinating and overthinking getting SOPs put together. They can help you. And remember that this is a huge just growth of trust in relationship. It's all founded on relationship. So as you are depending on their roles in the business, they are given access to and authority to speak into these different ownership pieces. So your VA might be really great at marketing. And as you guys are working through tasks and collaborating and revisiting what's working for your audience and what's not working for your audience, and all the systems to support that, you might eventually realize, okay, this VA like started out a certain way and she really is growing in this marketing capacity. And so we're going to push her in that. We're going to equip her in that. And the more that you build trust in that process together and in what your brand messaging looks like and how you want to speak to your audience and what that lead generation process looks like, she's going to grow in trust with you. She's going to grow in confidence with you. And all of the ways that she's able to now speak into with her knowledge and her skill and expertise, all the ways she's going to be able to speak into that and improve it for your business is going to grow. So you are building a foundation for the tech itself, but you're also building that foundation of trust and of collaboration and welcoming their feedback. The best thing that you can do as a business owner when you have a team is say, hey, how's it going? Ask your team for feedback. What are we doing well? How can I support you better? What do you enjoy about our team? What has been hard about our team? What's been challenging about working with our clients? What kind of clients do you think we should not be working with? All of this intel touches on your processes. It touches on your systems and your tech. The nitty-gritty practicals when it comes to working with a team can feel like a lot. It's in that day to day, but it all comes back down to number one, make those SOPs, get things on paper so that they're on the same page that you're on. There's too many solopreneurs that try to start working with a team and they're like, it's all in my head. Well, it shouldn't be. Even if you're the only one in the business, it shouldn't always be all in your head. It needs to be on paper. I feel like there's probably some of you here that are like, yeah, that's me. It's all in my head. And it takes time. So, give yourself grace, but put it together so that your team can come in and support you with it. And then there's a place for everybody to grow. And then assign ownership and encourage ownership to the right players. So let's say you see somebody showing up really well in one specific spot. Let them shine. Let them do what they're doing really well. You can create order for how things need to be maintained, but also give them that responsibility, like give them that ownership. Don't feel the need to micromanage just because it's maybe an uncomfortable thing for you. realize that they're going to be able to take the business farther because you're growing as a leader as they're growing as a part of your team. When you're empowering your team, you'll see all of these things on a timeline now. You'll see the maintenance of certain systems. You'll see when things are supposed to be reviewed and assessed, when feedback is supposed to be gathered and improved on. And when you have these things on a timeline, now you're not taking it all on yourself and you're not putting it all on your team to do at once. You're relieving that burden. You're taking that pressure off and you're saying, we're never going to do things with a sense of urgency. There's no pressure here. It's okay to make mistakes. How can we leverage this failure for our highest potential? All those kinds of things really point back to culture and are going to improve your tech and your systems. And just as a quick reminder for you, if you don't have a team, I want you to think about your relationship with yourself as a business owner and your interaction with yourself. Our self-talk, our like critical thinking can be so damaging sometimes. So if that's been really a struggle for you, think about how you can create a supportive and collaborative environment, even in your interaction with yourself, your own business. And that might mean pulling in other business owners who are really good at that, who you think, wow, they just like, they lead their business so well. And it seems like they're always so encouraged in what they're doing, whether it's their tech or their marketing, like they just have such a great perspective. Find people like that and make them a part of your community. Learn to grow with them. And remember that just because that's what you see on the outside doesn't always mean that that's what's going on all the time for them. They have just learned how to work through that struggle, and we all have to do that. Okay, number three, of enjoying the process with your team is place value on those personal connections and the openness with your team. There is so much, I believe, that can come up organically through conversation that will impact. It's all trickle down. It's going to impact your systems, your tech. Kind of comes back to what we were saying earlier about gratitude. Because when you start this process, when you start this journey of learning how to do this, of how to cultivate gratitude and how to maintain and shift perspective, this is a skill. We learn this as business owners. We learn how to shift perspective. We start learning how to recognize when perspective needs to be shift. And so the reason why we're touching on this again here is because your team, they may not know that yet. And if they don't know that yet, they might also not know that your business is a place where this is possible, not just where it's possible, but where it's invited and where it's welcomed and where they can show up this way and operate this way too. And so as you implement this for yourself as a leader and mirror it and model it, your team will do it with you. And then number four, stay involved and celebrate your team's victories. This one can be tough because we feel as CEOs that the more we start to delegate, the more we can pull away. And that is true. There is a huge component of that, but your team still needs your vision. They still need your support. And it's just like kids in a family. Your kids might be growing up and learning how to do things and they become more independent and more self-sufficient, and that's all great, but you don't just walk out the door and say, okay, you got it. You're always there. You're always the parent. And so really in that team dynamic, you want to be able to be there and celebrate their victories in your business. And their victories in your business are your victories in your business as well. So really understand that that whole picture of co-laboring through something is going to help encourage them. It's going to, spur them on to the next thing that they're like, okay, now we can do this. Now we can win at this next thing. And they don't always just feel like, oh, well, Jade's off over here doing her thing and we just have to figure this out on our own. No, business owners coming back to check on us, wants to make sure we're okay, wants to see us succeed, and actually cares about us as people. That's really, really important. This might mean that you delegate that 80 to 90% and you only see the 10%. So it's not me saying, hey, you have to still show up all the time. It's going to look different for each business and for each business owner, each team. But remember that by showing up and being a part of that process, you're really encouraging all of those things on both sides, that they need you and you need them. It's all a co-laboring effort for your business to be successful. And make margin for a culture that you want to cultivate, that there's There's this atmosphere in the team and in your communication with them that says, we're open to have conversations just to enjoy being around each other, just to enjoy working together. It's not always about productivity. It's not always about efficiency. And the more that you do this, the more that you'll start to create and save things organically that will be a part of the process like forever. That creativity and collaboration is fuel. I cannot stress this enough. The creativity is it's like oil. You know, when you're trying to get a fire going and you're like, where's the lighter fluid? And you just like pour it on there so that you don't have to like struggle for a long time. That's what creativity is for your systems and your tech to evolve really organically, is create the space for creativity and collaboration. It takes the burden off, the boredom off, the pressure off. It allows fresh ideas, encourages the growth mindset rather than a fixed mindset. And it reminds us the end result is not always the highest return. That is like, that one's hard for me. That's another one I'm like, I need to come back to this. The end result is not always the highest return. It's about the journey. It sounds so cliche, but we underestimate how real that can feel and how important creativity is. Creativity can be more enjoyable and more rewarding, and it can make the whole process more enjoyable and more rewarding as well. And this past year, I have felt a really valuable lesson about creative results cannot be obsessive. When you're coming down to KPIs, I was thinking a lot about like KPIs and measuring certain things in my business, but also in my life. And I realized that if I am so obsessed with KPIs, what am I doing to the creative potential? I am limiting so much. We need to be able to let go of that control in order to even see what's possible, in order to even have a paradigm shift, and in order to take risk. You have to feel that safety and that excitement in order to take risk and encourage your team to do it as well. Okay, so these are a couple questions you can ask your team at any time. What's possible that we haven't explored yet? And you can, drill it down into like a specific area. So it's not, so it's a little more granular, not so broad. But the what if questions, what would it look like if, can we imagine, like really letting people get outside of their box? And remember that working styles impact how people like to create and collaborate. You need to have that think tank time, but it's also important for like introverts and people that are researchers and are learners. They want to go out and they want to gather. They want to gather all this information that they can then bring to the team and provide value with and provide input with. And you are facilitating all of this, all of the attitudes, all the words and actions as the CEO. If you need that kind of leadership around you in order to cultivate it for your team, go and find it. Have you ever had any surprising results or new ideas because you did this in your business? You opened the door for collaboration and creativity. So drop in a win. And I just have to say, I have seen sales, profitability increase, team connectedness, both in my business and in other people's businesses that I've worked with. It's creativity is a powerful, powerful tool when you lean into it. Okay. Okay, so we're at the end today. I'm just going to let you know a few of the opportunities we have to like continue the conversation. I love talking strategy. I love talking with CEOs about their tech and how they're scaling and all the things. So if you want to jump on a strategy session with me, there's a 15% off code for you CEO work. You can book that one-on-one call. And then I have to throw this out as well. If you are a business owner that is ready to delegate, or you've even been thinking about delegating, this resource is really awesome. What a VA can do for you. It is a guide kind of outlining like things that VAs can do, giving you a little bit of education on different types of VAs, as well as a behind the scenes like task auditor. That's a sheet that you basically go in and you put in like, here's all the tasks I do. And then it will like help you rank them so you can figure out what you should be delegating based on your energy drains and things like that. So really valuable resource, even if you're just like, what should I not be doing? It's really, really helpful. Okay, a couple of FAQs. We do not have to go through any of these. If you have specific questions as it pertains to SOPs or tech and tool processes and things like that. But these are a few that we commonly get. And in our SOPs, they're stored in ClickUp. I have a lot of things in Airtable as well. So those are just a couple of my tools of choice. If you need help with your systems, there's all kinds of systems experts, especially in the Dubsettle community. And then also just keeping in mind like your industry. That's always really, really, really valuable as well. If you have any other questions, I would love to answer them. Stay connected with me too on social media, Mrs. Smith Assist. You can subscribe to our blog and all the things. Love to meet you.
All right, Jade, thank you so much for all of that. That was fantastic. That was a lot of really good content. If you wanted to, oh, that's totally fine. I would say you actually answered one of my own questions when you got to your FAQ page, which was about SOPs. I was going to ask you, like, what softwares you like to use for SOPs, since that's a question that I've gotten frequently as well for users who are thinking about doing SOP. Anybody who's here in the chat, if you do have questions for Jade while we're here chatting, please feel free to throw those in the chat. But I did have one other question here for you, Jade.
Okay.
For somebody who is maybe realizing to themselves that they do need to be a bit more proactive about this whole process, and maybe they're playing a little bit of catch up, how often would you recommend that they have a tech day or a systems day? And, like you said, go to a shared workspace or a coffee shop and kind of think about this proactively. I think a lot of what you were saying was, give yourself some grace and you don't have to do it all at once. But what's a good timetable, let's say, for somebody who realizes they need to play a little bit of catch up?
Yeah, that's such a great question. I think it really, I hate to say it depends. I think it really
That's
does.
okay.
Yeah, I think it really does depend. And sometimes that is why working with a systems person or just someone to consult, even if it's a co-working person, can help you figure out what is that timetable based on the fires you have going on, right? Because it could
Yeah.
be a more aggressive once a week approach if that's what you can handle, if that's what you can manage. If things are working well and you don't feel the pressure for scaling purposes or for anything like that, then take a more laid back approach and come to it once a month, whatever really feels natural for you.
Totally. Yeah, that makes sense. That was kind of one of my other thoughts as well. And I think the answer here is also is it depends. But for people who I think there's probably a lot of folks in this space, but they're doing something, whether it's invoicing or the way they do their email marketing, and what they're doing is working. And it's difficult to kind of see that it could be optimized, that it needs to be improved. So do you have any other recommendations for folks who are like, well, like it's sort of a don't, if it ain't broke, don't fix it sort of situation. But I think that comes down to just being aware of the information around like kind of what you're talking about. Anything else you want to add to that point?
100%. I think you're right. It's just paying attention to what's going on. And I think another thing that you could even create a process for around this specifically is
Sure.
um, sort of like a ticketing system of sorts where like how many times has this issue come up?
Okay.
So
Yeah.
for me and my business, that's something like with my team, if there's an issue that pops up, I'm like, okay, let's make a note of that. Like
Yeah.
specifically for our team, like if we have a team member that they are not responding to notifications like ever, work is falling behind, I'm like, okay, well, we touch base with them, let's make a note of that. And then if we touch base with them again, okay, let's make a note of that. How many times are we touching base with this
Sure.
person? There's
Yeah.
a system and there's a whole process to support that and make sure that there's accountability. And that could be both in the team function, but also like on the tech side when you notice like a recurring issue. When is it needing to be addressed? Is it 5 times? Is it 10 times? And you get to
Yeah.
determine as a business owner what that is.
No, that makes a ton of sense. I think it's a really good thing to call out. I think it's also really easy as a small business owner or maybe someone just doing work by yourself when you encounter a barrier and you overcome it, you're like, okay, cool, I did it. I kind of got past it. It's easy to sort of bury your head in the sand as opposed to like what you said, note it down and be like, okay, cool, I did that effectively, but let's keep track and see if that rears its head again. And that makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love the idea too of having that process so that you can come back to it, but also like you mentioned, even seeing the wins.
Yeah.
Sometimes we forget to just really celebrate those wins.
Yeah.
Builds a lot of confidence.
Exactly right. Exactly right. We had a comment here from Jasmine, and she said, "I usually schedule time about once a week to really hone in on improving my systems. Usually Sundays, since it's right before the start of the week." And Jasmine, I think that's a great way to do it. I think having one day a week to do that is a really good plan for you there. I think that that's about all the time we have for here today. We are here at the top of the hour. So Jade, I just want to thank you once again for coming on and having this talk with us here again today. It was
Thank you so much for having me. This was a blast. Thank you guys.
course. Anybody who's here in the chat, you will be receiving the recording shortly after the webinar is done here in about an hour, but otherwise we'll catch you all on the next webinar. Jade, thanks again.
Have a good one.